Hi everyone! Tonight we're going to enter a world of soft silk, gilded halls, and cruelty hidden beneath layers of powdered beauty. Picture this, you're 13, maybe 14. Your hands still smell like laundry water and ginger candy. You've barely finished learning how to braid your own hair. And now you're standing barefoot on cold stone tiles lined up with dozens of other girls, while a sharp-eyed official circles you like a hawk eyeing meat. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. It helps me keep whispering these lost stories into the night. Also, post your location and what time you're listening. I love knowing where you are in the world. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started on tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice isn't the palace walls, it's the silence. No one dares speak in the presence of the selection eunuchs. Their faces are powdered too blank as rice paper, but their eyes are sharp, scanning every inch of you. Your posture, your teeth, whether your fingers are too stubby, whether you limp, whether your skin is clean. The Imperial Draft doesn't care who you are. You could be the daughter of a wealthy merchant or a farmer's niece whose village got lucky this season. If you're pretty and fertile looking, you're scooped into the roster. You were told it's an honor. You were told this will elevate your family. But no one told you the truth. Not really. They don't tell you that you'll never leave. You can hear one girl breathing too fast. She faints right there in the courtyard. Her mother shrieks, but she's hauled off like spoiled fish, disqualified. You stay very still. That's what your aunt told you. Still and quiet, and eyes lowered like a painted doll. Never let them see fear, she whispered. Fear is the scent of prey. One step at a time, you're moved forward. They assign you a number. That's all you are now, number 73. They give you bath water that smells faintly of dried peonies and vinegar. They shave parts of you didn't think needed shaving. Someone rubs perfumed oil behind your ears like you're a prize chicken being prepared for market. The next day, the real horror begins. You and the other selected girls are brought into the outer palace. A courtyard of carved jade steps, towering vermilion gates, guards who don't blink. Everything seems too big, oversized, swollen, like a dream that's not quite right. You're led into a holding chamber with lattice windows and tiny bowls of porridge. They say nothing to you for 3 days. You start to believe you've been forgotten, but on the 4th morning the doors open. An official with an abacus calls 5 names. Yours is one of them. Your legs almost give out. The other girls don't congratulate you. They stare at you like you've been sentenced. And you have. You're not told what happens to the girls who aren't called. Some say they're returned to their families in shame. Others whisper they're sold off to far provinces or quietly retired into temple servitude. You're led barefoot across slippery stone to the inner palace, the inner court. You've heard of it, everyone has. The place where the emperor's concubines live like birds in a jeweled cage. You enter the Hall of Purity. It doesn't feel pure. It feels heavy. Every step echoes like it's being recorded by the ancestors. An older woman dressed in blue silk, her face lined with decades of unspoken things, looks you up and down. Too skinny, she mutters, then taps your shoulder with a lacquered stick. She'll do. And just like that, you're in. You're given new robes, stiff and embroidered with chrysanthemums. The sleeves are too long for your arms. You're told not to alter them, only tailors with palace clearance can touch garments. You're shown to a tiny room with a stone bed and a lattice window too small to crawl through. There's a mirror. It's polished bronze and it distorts your reflection just enough that you don't recognize yourself. That night, you lie on your side listening to the muffled cries of another girl down the hall. You don't know her name. You don't want to. Somewhere outside, a bell rings once, then twice. Imperial hour of the dog. The time when wolves used to roam the countryside, howling at the doors of poor farmers. Now you're the prey inside the palace, and the wolves wear silk robes and gold headdresses. You fall asleep with your hands balled into fists under your pillow, and you dream of your old house, the sound of your mother's slippers on the clay floor, the way the plum trees smelled in late spring. But when you wake up, there's only stone. Oddly enough, historians still debate whether girls in your position were truly volunteers from elite households or coerced conscripts under the illusion of honor. The lines blur. The records lie. And the truth is, it didn't matter. Once you stepped inside the red gates of the inner court, you belonged to history, not to yourself. The name you were born with is never spoken again. It's gone scrubbed from palace records like a mistake on parchment. From now on, you're called Jade Sprout, a delicate name chosen by someone who didn't even look at you. It's embroidered on your new slippers, written on your doorframe in fine ink, and whispered by eunuchs with flat expressions as if it's always been yours. But you remember. You remember your real name the way your father said it when you spilled water on the hearth, or when your sister called you to come chase frogs in the flooded rice fields. And now you're told that name is too common, not fit for court life, not fit for the emperor's presence. You learn quickly that your identity isn't yours anymore. It's curated. Your voice is monitored. Your walk corrected, your meals portioned according to your status, which, let's be clear, is barely above the palace cats. They're allowed to roam. You're not. There's a concubine 2 rooms over who used to be called Jade Spring. Now she's Plum Whisper. You both exchange awkward glances at breakfast, if you can even call it that. Thin millet porridge and a boiled quail egg. That's what you get if you're in the lowest tier, the ones just brought in. The ones they call the unfavored. You're told there are rankings: noble consort, virtuous consort, pure consort, and more, all the way down to people like you, concubines of the 5th rank. One of the older women jokes, "Don't worry, there's still a 6th. That one's for girls who trip in front of the emperor." You don't laugh. Neither does anyone else. The morning routine starts at the crack of dawn before the crows even stir. You're expected to attend etiquette training, poetry recital, and court dance rehearsals. The irony: most of you will never dance for anyone. You're rehearsing for a stage you'll never stand on, just in case. There's a teacher, Madame Jen, who corrects you with a willow branch when you mispronounce a line from the Book of Songs. She does it slowly, and she never raises her voice. The calm ones are the scariest. A concubine is like a poem, she says, rapping your knuckles, beautiful, measured, and easy to forget. Your fingers throb, but you nod. Every movement is observed, even your blink rate. You discover that the eunuchs have a system for reporting everything you do. If you sleep too much, you're lazy. If you laugh too loudly, you're undisciplined. If you cry, that's emotional instability. So you stop crying. You start folding your emotions into tiny invisible boxes and tucking them under your ribs. You walk with the correct number of steps between turns. You memorize the names of 143 other concubines, well, their titles anyway. Names are a luxury you're not allowed anymore. One night you hear the click of wooden sandals outside your door. A eunuch. He doesn't knock. He just stands there, the candle in his hand, illuminating a face that looks half-carved from wood. "The Emperor is touring tonight," he says. You nod, heart sinking. He's not coming to you. He's just touring, visiting another wing. Everyone is whispering about who it might be. You don't know her, the one who's been chosen, but you hate her a little, just for a moment. Then you hate yourself for feeling that way. Later that night, someone sneaks you a charcoal drawing, a childish scribble of your real name. You don't know who sent it. Maybe a maid you smiled at once. Maybe it's a mistake, but you fold it tight and hide it under your stone pillow. You whisper it to yourself before sleep, your real name. You dream of a swing tied to a mango tree. The rope burns your palms as you push off higher, higher. Someone calls your name. The real one. And just before you turn to answer, you wake up. A rooster cries in the distance. The rooster is fake, kept in a special courtyard. Real roosters are too unpredictable. Like real people. Sometimes late at night, when you're sure no one's listening, you stare at your face in the polished bronze and try to pronounce your own name again. Not the one they gave you. Yours. But your lips feel stiff, as if they've already forgotten how. Oddly enough, historians still debate whether low-ranked concubines ever got a chance to see the emperor at all. Some records suggest that many spent their whole lives inside the walls without once catching a glimpse of the man they technically served. Forgotten before they were even remembered. You wonder if that'll be you. A name on a door, a footnote in someone else's story. And yet every morning you paint your face like it matters. You paint it like he might walk by today. The waiting is the worst part. You sit in the dressing chamber, spine straight, like a bamboo stalk, hands folded perfectly in your lap. Hours pass. You don't blink. You barely breathe. The maids hover around you like bees circling a blossom made of fear. One holds the rouge pot. Another adjusts your hairpins. A dangling jade ornament trembles with every breath you dare to take. Tonight could be the night. Your name has been noted by the head eunuch, and that means possibility. Not certainty, never that. Just a flicker. The emperor is making selections again, and all eligible concubines must be prepared freshly bathed, perfumed, dressed in regulation moon-pink silk. You're one of them. You've been one of them for weeks. You've learned by now not to hope too hard. Too much hope just makes the fall longer. You've seen it before, girls so giddy with anticipation, they nearly fainted when their names weren't called. One girl sobbed through the night and was transferred to a colder wing the next morning. Some say it was punishment, others think it was mercy. A sharp knock on the frame, every muscle in your body snaps taut. A eunuch enters, his expression unreadable. He reads a name. It's not yours. You smile anyway. That's the rule. The other girl. Sweet Orchid, today's lucky flower, rises shakily. She's crying already, which is embarrassing. Madame Jen will have words with her tomorrow. Once she's gone, the room falls into a quiet so thick it presses against your chest. Someone begins removing your ornaments, untying your sash. You're returned to your chamber like a doll that didn't get picked at the toy store. This is the rhythm of your life now: silence, ritual, rejection, repeat. You lie on the stone bed, still wearing your makeup. You don't have the strength to scrub it off. The rouge feels like a lie now. A joke painted across your cheeks. You taste salt. You're not sure if it's from tears or the bitterness rising from your own stomach. The next day you pretend it never happened. You wake before the bell. You light the incense stick. You rehearse your poetry. You kneel in the corridor when the head consort passes by. You eat your egg. You keep your face blank. That afternoon, you overhear something in the servants' corridor. Two eunuchs talking, unaware that you're just around the latticed partition. She didn't please him, one says, whispering. Fell asleep during the flute performance, the other snorts. Dismissed before dessert. They laugh softly, and your stomach turns. The selection wasn't a night of romance. It was an audition. The emperor might have been bored. He might have been tired. Or maybe he just didn't like Sweet Orchid's voice. She won't be called again. Everyone knows that. And you, well, you're still waiting for your audition. Still practicing the flute with frozen fingers in winter. Still perfecting your bow, your posture, your size. You wonder what you'll do if the emperor ever does choose you. Smile, stumble. Vomit. You've never even spoken to him. Your only sighting was from afar during the spring festival. A flash of yellow robes on a shaded balcony. A silhouette more myth than man. And yet your entire future depends on that myth noticing you for 5 minutes. Some girls try harder. They bribe eunuchs. They leave little tokens in the emperor's pathway, hand-sewn sachets, verses written in their own blood. It's pathetic, really. And sometimes it works. But just as often it doesn't. One girl, Peony Sai, tried slipping a love poem into the emperor's sleeve during a calligraphy demonstration. She was relocated to the laundry department within a week. No one saw her again. So you stay quiet. You stay proper. The trick, they say, is to be unforgettable without trying to be remembered. But how? Tonight they light the palace lanterns early. A sign. There's going to be another tour. You feel the tightness return to your throat. It's a little like drowning in your own heartbeat. You sit, you wait. Footsteps echo outside, closer, closer. The eunuch appears. He reads the name. It's yours. Your vision goes white, then red. Then the room snaps into focus like a gong being struck. You rise. They fix your hair again. They adjust your sleeves. You're not breathing properly, but nobody tells you to calm down. There's no time. You're led down a corridor lit by 1,000 trembling candle flames, each one flickering like the pulse in your wrists. You enter a pavilion filled with gold. And him. He's not as tall as you imagined. His face is unreadable. He doesn't look at you, not really. He gestures vaguely, and you're brought forward kneeling. You're told to play the guqin. You didn't know there would be music. Your fingers are shaking. You forget the third note. You cover the mistake with a trill. He finally looks at you, and then he smiles. Just a little. After that, everything moves like fog. A servant pours tea. Someone cracks a joke. You laugh, unsure if you were supposed to. He nods, amused. You're dismissed before moonrise. Back in your chamber, the others stare at you. You shrug, too dazed to speak. But your heart, your foolish, foolish heart, is leaping like it's just been granted wings. He smiled at you. Oddly enough, historians still debate how much influence concubines truly had over emperors. Some records suggest they were nothing but background ornaments. Others say entire wars were waged for their affections. All you know tonight is, he smiled, and that changes everything. You're summoned again the next evening. This time there's no tremble in your step. You've rehearsed the bow so many times it's muscle memory now. Your eyes lower exactly the right amount, modest but not meek. The eunuch barely speaks as he leads you through a shortcut in the inner courtyard where lanterns glow like floating moons above still water. The palace has a strange way of growing smaller the more important you become. You start noticing doors others don't use, hallways that skip entire wings. Every path leads closer to the emperor. Tonight the room is simpler. Fewer servants, a screen painted with cranes, a low table with honey-glazed lotus root and a warm pot of osmanthus wine. He motions for you to sit. You sit. Not next to him, not across from him. Just close enough to matter. He asks your name. Your mouth opens and you almost say the wrong one, but you don't. You tell him the one they gave you, Jade Sprout. He nods like it fits you. You're not sure whether that makes you proud or sad. He asks where you learned to play the guqin. You lie. Everyone lies. You say your mother hired a master that you practiced every morning by the lotus pond, even though the only pond you knew growing up was a mosquito-choked ditch behind the pig pen. He chuckles. You smile. The game begins, because that's what this is, a game. No one tells you the rules. You learn them in the glances, in the subtle lean of a shoulder, in how long it takes him to refill your cup. 1 minute too eager and you're dismissed. 1 second too aloof and you're replaced. And you're not alone. The concubines who've won his favor watch you now. They know you're the new pet, and no pet stays cute forever. The next morning, everything changes. You're assigned a new maid. You're moved to better chambers. You receive robes in richer colors, rose gold, even imperial yellow, though in a slightly duller shade. A carved box appears on your table. Inside is a comb, not a hairpin. A comb. That means something. It means you are liked, but with favor comes the opposite jealousy. You find a lotus pastry on your pillow laced with something bitter. You don't eat it. You laugh about it with your maid, but then you realize she's not laughing. She's watching the door. Quietly, she throws the pastry into the stove. That night she sleeps outside your door, wrapped in a blanket. Another gift arrives. A hair oil said to promote beauty. You pour it down the drain. From then on, you don't accept anything unless it comes from him directly. You also stop speaking to most of the others. It's not rudeness. It's survival. There's a saying in the inner court. The more you talk, the shorter your sleeves get. It means your days are numbered. No one likes a chatty favorite. So you walk slower now. You speak softer. You smile like you're grateful but never greedy. You get good at the dance. One evening he invites you to paint with him. You hold your brush delicately mimicking the grace of plum blossoms. You notice he holds his like a warrior. Heavy, fast strokes. His characters aren't elegant, they're alive. Do you miss your home, he asks. You pause. Yes, you say. Then, but I'm grateful to be here. It's the perfect answer. And it's not entirely a lie. You do miss your home, the dirt yard, your father's loud sneezes, your sister's off-key singing. But you also know you can never return. Not even if you wanted to. You're too changed, too painted. Later, your maid tells you the Empress has asked about you. You freeze. She doesn't repeat the details. She doesn't have to. You know enough to be afraid. The Empress doesn't often show interest in lower consorts. She's far above all of you. Her word can unmake your entire life. A single frown from her and you're nothing again. Oshun. You feel it, that invisible net tightening. One wrong word, one rumor, one poorly timed yawn in the Emperor's presence, and it's all over. Still, for now, you're rising. At the next moon viewing ceremony, you're seated just 3 rows behind the Empress herself. You try not to fidget. The air smells like chrysanthemums and tension. A poet reads a new verse and everyone claps politely. You don't clap. You wait until the Emperor claps, then you follow. Just a second behind. Just enough to show deference. It's noticed. Later that night, an older concubine whispers, "You're learning." It's not a compliment. It's a warning. Oddly enough, historians still debate how much day-to-day control the Emperor had over his harem. Many believe he delegated most decisions to the Empress and the Dowager court, only stepping in for ceremony or well companionship. Others argue the emperor played favorites obsessively, rewriting rosters, altering ranks, even assigning poetry themes to test emotional depth. You don't know which kind of emperor you serve, but you do know this: he smiled at you again today. And someone else noticed. You've now entered what they call the dangerous middle. It's that fragile stretch of time after you've been noticed when eyes are on you, but not all of them are friendly. You're not new enough to be harmless, nor established enough to be untouchable. You're in between. And in the palace, the in-between gets eaten alive. You start hearing your name whispered. Not Jade Sprout, but the older version, your old name spoken like a ghost someone half remembers. One of the kitchen maids glances at you too long, then lowers her gaze. A eunuch coughs when he sees you approach, as if erasing words from his throat. Someone has started a rumor. You don't know what it is yet, but it's coming. Then one morning your maid informs you with carefully neutral expression that you're expected at the Pavilion of Clear Judgment. That's where complaints are heard. Accusations. Trials, if you can call them that. Your stomach drops. You're not told why. You're just told to wear the formal robe, the deep indigo one that stiffens when you breathe, and to bring no jewelry. The walk feels longer than it is. You pass through archways that feel colder than usual, past guards who don't nod. Inside, 3 women wait on raised seats led by a deputy consort you've only ever seen at formal events. They ask you to kneel. You do. You're told that someone submitted a note claiming you bribed a eunuch to be chosen, that you used herbal perfume considered unapproved, that you stared directly at the emperor as if he were a market boy and not the son of heaven. You blink. Then you do the smartest thing you've learned to do since arriving. You say nothing. You wait. They study you. One woman leans forward and asks, "Did you do it?" You say, "I have no perfume. Only the soap issued by the inner laundry." No one speaks for a moment. Another woman says, "We'll investigate." You're dismissed. You return to your chamber shaking, and then something curious happens. Nothing. Days pass. No punishment. No reassignment. No slap on the wrist. Just silence. Which in the inner court is more terrifying than scolding. The message is clear: you're being watched. You start to notice smaller changes. Your food arrives 5 minutes later. Your plum wine tastes slightly different. A servant forgets your name and calls you Spring Petal. You sleep less. You listen more. At night, you lie awake trying to remember all the faces you've smiled at, all the ones you didn't smile at. You replay every conversation you've ever had in the palace and try to spot the mistake. One morning, the emperor sends for you again. Your first thought is why. Your second thought is this a trap? You go anyway. In the pavilion, he's painting. Again, those thick strokes, brutal, alive. He waves a brush in your direction, smearing a little ink onto his sleeve, and says, "I hear you've been naughty." You kneel slowly. "I didn't know looking at your majesty was a crime." He snorts. "Depends how you look." You smile just a little. He doesn't smile back. "They want me to send you away, reassign you to the garden quarters. That's where failed consorts go. Forgotten women. You'd spend your days trimming hedges, playing with imperial dogs, and reciting poetry for yourself. You keep your face blank." He taps the paper. "But I like your silence." He sets the brush down. "You'll stay." That night you're officially promoted 1 rank higher. The rewards are immediate. Better food, a larger mirror, a second maid. But the costs, they arrive too. You're sent an embroidered sash by someone in the Dowager Empress's household. It's a message subtle, impossible to decline, and laced with a quiet threat. You must attend a tea ceremony. With her, she's the emperor's stepmother, the real power behind the veil. At the ceremony you say little. She says less. You pour the tea exactly as taught. You don't tremble. She does not compliment you. But when you leave, her attendant slips you a gift, a bracelet of carved ivory. No words. Later, your maid whispers, "That's approval." You wish it felt more comforting. Oddly enough, historians still debate whether the Empress Dowager wielded more political power than the emperor himself. In many dynasties, she orchestrated marriages, ruled behind screens, and even chose which concubines stayed or disappeared. Some emperors, it's said, feared their mothers more than any enemy. You believe it, because after her tea ceremony, the rumors stop. Your name vanishes from the gossip trails, and yet you've never felt more exposed. You survive the middle, not by rising above, but by sinking just low enough to be ignored, just high enough to be feared. The higher you climb, the more people want to watch you fall. Now that you've been officially promoted, given a title, better quarters, and the emperor's occasional smile, every step you take echoes just a bit louder. You're not just a concubine anymore. You're that concubine. The one who wasn't supposed to last. The one who survived the pavilion of clear judgment. The one who made the Dowager Empress raise a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. And in the palace, notoriety is dangerous currency. You're assigned a new overseer, a eunuch named Shun, who reports directly to the Department of Palace Affairs. That means he's watching everything: when you sleep, how much you eat, whether you seem pleased. He never smiles. He never blinks. He appears when you least expect him, standing in doorways like a ghost with a ledger. He keeps notes, and so do you, just in your head. You remember every servant's name, every nod from an official, every time another concubine lingers a little too long near your table in the communal garden. They've started trying to befriend you now. Jasmine Cloud, who once pretended not to know you at morning prayers, now giggles too loudly when you make a dull joke about the plum trees. Autumn Snow begins complimenting your ink work. They all want something: protection, proximity, relevance. You give them just enough to think you're harmless. But in truth, you've begun to understand the rules of the game. The inner court is a stage, and you're always performing, even in sleep. One night you dream of falling. Not metaphorically. Literally tumbling down the carved steps of the longevity pavilion, your embroidered sleeves fluttering uselessly around you. You wake up gasping, the stone bed hard against your spine. In the days that follow, you become more careful. You speak less, smile precisely, walk slowly, as if every gesture has been rehearsed, which at this point it has. Then something unexpected happens. You're invited to host a poetry salon. It's a minor honor, but still. The emperor might attend. The other concubines will definitely attend. It's a chance to be visible, to perform intelligence, taste poise. It's also a trap. Everyone knows it. The last woman who hosted a salon was accused of reciting lines that insulted the emperor's birth sign. She didn't even write them. She just read them aloud. Now she's sweeping tiles in the quiet courtyard. But you accept. You spend the next 5 nights preparing. You commission hand-copied verses from 3 different dynastic poets. You write to yourself, safe, elegant, inoffensive. You have your maid burn the early drafts. You rehearse your posture in the mirror, relaxed, but not too casual. You tell your heart to slow down. The night arrives. The lanterns are bright, the cushions overstuffed, the plum wine slightly too warm. You recite second after Lotus Serenity, whose voice trembles and whose scroll unrolls too fast. She's nervous. You can see the sweat on her upper lip. When it's your turn, the room hushes. You step forward. Your voice does not shake. You choose the safest of your verses. It's about the moon, of course. Everything in this palace is about the moon. It's pale, distant, untouchable, just like you try to be. The audience applauds politely. and then he appears. The emperor enters without announcement. Everyone stiffens. You lower yourself into a bow so fluid it almost surprises you. You don't look up until you hear him say, "Continue." He gestures for you to repeat the poem. You do. Then he asks, "Did you write it?" You pause. This is one of those moments the rest of your life pivots on. "Yes, Your Majesty," you say, but only with the guidance of ancient voices. He nods. You've passed the test. But later, as everyone disperses, you notice something strange. Jun, your assigned eunuch, is nowhere to be found. He's never missed an event. Never. You ask discreetly. The answer returns the next morning: sick leave. Except eunuchs aren't allowed sick leave unless formally approved. And there's no record of it. You remember his ledger, his watchful eyes, the way he always seemed to know too much. And you remember the Dowager's bracelet still tucked away in your private chest. Ivory beads that feel heavier with every passing day. Something is shifting. Oddly enough, historians still debate how much surveillance was maintained over individual concubines. Some argue the emperor encouraged privacy for his favorites. Others believe the opposite, that eunuchs were tasked with constant observation, ensuring loyalty, purity, and silence. You believe in both, because just as you begin to taste autonomy, you also begin to see the bars of your cage more clearly. You're not a woman anymore. You're a symbol, a pawn, a risk, and now for the first time, a threat. They say power protects you. That's a lie. You discover this the moment you're summoned to the Hall of Attentive Harmony. Not for a performance, not for a banquet, but for questioning. No warning, no detail, just a command. One of those too polite orders that leaves your stomach in knots before your feet even move. You don't know what it's about. That's the worst part. When you arrive, the hall is nearly empty. Only a few high-ranking officials, one elderly eunuch with half-lidded eyes, and a scribe. The kind who never looks at you, just scratches on bamboo slips like your life is already written and he's just catching up. You're told to kneel. Then the questions begin. Who taught you poetry? Who gave you access to rare scrolls? Who allowed you to host the salon? You answer softly, carefully, each word polished like a river stone. You say nothing unnecessary. You name no names. A pause. Then, have you had contact with any banned texts? You freeze. You think of the secret verse a maid once left under your bowl, a metaphor about caged phoenixes. You burned it. Of course you burned it. But now even the memory feels dangerous. You say, "No, Your Excellency." The scribe does not look up. They dismiss you with a wave. But you know it's not over. That wasn't an inquiry. It was a warning. You return to your quarters slower than usual, heart pounding behind your ribs like a trapped sparrow. You barely make it past the curtain before your maid says someone's been here. You look around, nothing missing. But something's wrong. The incense ash has been swept too clean. A small scroll you hid behind your bed is now folded backwards. Someone searched your room. They were looking for something, or planting it. You stay up that night watching the candle burn lower. You start to question everything. Was the Emperor's smile last week real or political theater? Was that compliment from the Dowager a lifeline or a leash? And where is Chun? He's still gone. Rumors say he was reassigned. Others say he's ill. One maid whispers he was caught selling information to foreign visitors, but no one believes that. He was too careful, too cold. You start to miss him. Then one morning you find something behind your mirror. A note, folded 8 times. You unfold it slowly, breath-held fingers trembling. It's written in a hand you don't recognize, and it says only, "Careful, you are not the only one with secrets." That's it. No name, no signature. Just fear compacted into ink. You burn it instantly, and you start changing. You stop sharing even the smallest thoughts with your maids. You reread everything before you speak. You adopt a soft cough to avoid being summoned too often. You start skipping meals claiming mild illness just so you can be alone. You are isolating. You know that. But you've seen what happens to the ones who trust. Still, you can't shake one thought. Why you? Why now? The answer arrives 2 days later. At breakfast, your maid bows low and whispers, "You've been invited to the spring proclamation." You blink. That's not possible. The spring proclamation is for consorts of rank nobility and high favor. Not you. But it's true. A silk scroll arrives with gold tassels. Your name is there, your palace title in elegant brushstrokes. It's not a mistake. It's an elevation. And now you understand. The warnings, the questions, the surveillance. Someone is lifting you up, and others want to know why. You attend the proclamation with trembling pride and silent terror. The event is dazzling. Gold cranes, floating lanterns, children singing, lines of nobles seated like lacquer dolls. You're placed in the 3rd row. The Empress is in the 1st. The Dowager in the shadows behind her, wrapped in brocade so dense it looks like armor. You don't look at her. You bow with perfect timing. You speak only when spoken to. You are, as far as anyone can tell, a model of discipline and charm. But later, as you sip jasmine tea in the reception hall, a message is quietly handed to you. 3 words: do not ascend. No sender, no explanation, just a warning. And as you lower the slip of paper into your sleeve, a chill runs down your spine. Not from the wind, not from the tea, but from the creeping realization that someone somewhere doesn't want you to succeed. Oddly enough, historians still debate how promotions within the imperial harem were decided. Some claim it was merit, beauty, charm, political savvy. Others say it was chaos, a swirl of bribes, alliances, whispers, and betrayal. You've begun to believe it's all true, because nothing in the palace is what it seems, and success might be the most dangerous punishment of all. You don't ascend, at least not publicly. You perform the illusion of restraint, like a seasoned actress smiling softly at the emperor's glances, bowing lower than necessary when the Empress glides by, speaking with the practiced calm of someone who doesn't want anything at all. That's the key, looking like you want nothing. But every breath you take is strategic. Every fold of your sleeve is a decision. And behind your lowered lashes, you're watching everyone. Because now you know 2 things with certainty. 1, someone is protecting you. And 2, someone else is preparing to end you. The balance is delicate. You've become a name on the wrong people's lips, a topic in late-night strategy sessions behind silk screens. You're not just a pretty shadow anymore. You're a variable. And in the palace, variables are dangerous. So you shrink. Subtly. Just enough to suggest you're grateful, but harmless. You skip a music rehearsal and let someone else shine. You step back during a procession to let another favored consort walk ahead. You don't touch the richer foods at the banquet. You let someone else be the flame for a while, and you wait. It pays off when one evening you're called to serve tea in the emperor's study. Nothing formal, no audience, no fanfare. He doesn't even glance up at first. He's reading. Something bound in dark red silk. A military report, maybe. Or a poem. Or someone's fate. You kneel, place the tea before him, and wait for acknowledgement. He speaks without looking. You're quieter than before. You say, "I've found quiet to be useful." A pause. He chuckles. It's soft-tired. Then he sets the scroll aside. "You've been warned, haven't you?" he says. Your blood runs cold, but you keep your voice even. "I've received suggestions." He finally looks at you. "Good," he says. "Then you'll last longer." Just like that, the conversation ends. He picks up the scroll again. and you're dismissed like smoke curling from a candle. You walk back to your chamber barefoot, not trusting your balance in court slippers. The moon is full, but feels colder than usual. The next morning a gift arrives. A cloak, heavy silk lined with fox fur, embroidered with tiny bats, symbols of fortune. But you see it for what it is, a message. He's claimed you, and now you're more exposed than ever. Later that week, something strange happens. You're invited to join a ceremonial blessing at the Temple of Ancestral Virtue, a sacred space usually reserved for senior consorts and the Empress herself. You've only ever glimpsed it from a distance, a shadowed hall with jade columns and incense smoke thicker than fog. You don't know why you're invited, but you go. The temple is hauntingly quiet. The kind of silence that makes you feel like you're trespassing on something ancient and dangerous. You walk in line behind Consort Lu and Noble Lady Chun, two women who've been in the palace longer than you've been alive. They don't speak to you. They barely look at you. Inside, you kneel on a cushion. An elderly priest chants. You press your forehead to the mat, as instructed, but something feels wrong. The air is too heavy, the floor too cold. Then you smell it just for a second. Smoke, but not incense, something sharper. When you lift your head, you catch it, a faint burn on the edge of your ceremonial sleeve. A mark someone could easily interpret as a sign of disrespect. A reason to discipline, to demote, to erase. You keep your head down. You don't flinch. When the prayer ends, you calmly fold the scorched edge under your robe and walk out without a word. Back in your chamber, your maid sees the damage. She says nothing, just brings a replacement robe and quietly scrapes the ashes from the floor. That night you sit in the dark and finally say it aloud, "Someone wants me gone." Oddly enough, historians still debate the role of religion in harem politics. Officially, temples were sacred spaces. In practice, they were often backdrops for power plays. Blessings denied rituals, manipulated accusations made with the softest smile. You've now seen it for yourself. They won't confront you directly. They'll scorch your sleeve and wait for you to trip. But you won't. Not yet, because as long as you're breathing, you're still playing. And this game, you're starting to learn how to win. The day your body betrays you begins like any other. You wake at dawn, sip the bitter chrysanthemum tea, meant to balance the qi, and sit through the endless morning ceremony where no one speaks unless spoken to. But by midday, your insides are folding in on themselves. Not pain, something softer, stranger. A flutter, a pulling, a quiet, unmistakable shift. By sunset, you are pregnant. You don't say it aloud, not to your maid, not even to yourself in the mirror. Not yet. In the inner court, words are dangerous, and this one could change everything. Or end you. You keep moving through the motions. Bow, smile, accept a bowl of lotus seed soup. Turn it away politely. Breathe through the nausea. The thought rings like a bell behind your ribs. A child, an heir, a weapon. Because here in the palace, pregnancy is power, but also death. You've heard the stories whispered in the laundry rooms behind folding screens. Girls pushed down stairs, poisoned with plum juice, suffocated in sleep. Not by enemies, by rivals, sometimes even by the emperor's mother. The Dowager Empress once famously dismissed a concubine for improper swelling. That concubine never returned, so you do not celebrate. You hide. You change your diet. Chew slowly. Sleep on your side. Avoid certain teas. You fake an interest in embroidery just to stay away from the main garden where eyes gather like crows on a carcass. And still somehow it spreads. By week 3, someone leaves a small talisman on your pillow. Fertility-themed. Too pointed to be innocent. By week 4, the head physician is sent to your chambers unrequested. He arrives with a thick beard, 4 assistants, and a lacquered box of tools that makes your skin crawl. He bows. Routine inspection, he says. You lie there, pulse screaming in your ears, as he gently presses your abdomen. He says nothing. Not to you. Only to the eunuch watching from the corner. Then he leaves. An hour later, you're summoned. The emperor has called for you, alone. No attendance, no reason given. Your legs wobble all the way to his study. He doesn't ask if you're well. He already knows. He stands by the window watching the koi swim in careful circles. Finally, he speaks, so he says, "You're going to make things complicated." You freeze. I wasn't sure. He continues. But the physician says it's early. Very early. We won't announce it. You keep your eyes on the floor, your voice barely above a breath. I didn't try to. I know, he cuts in. It's fine. Then quieter, it's fine. You wait for something more. A gesture. A smile. Anything. Instead, he waves you away like an afterthought. You walk back through the halls, colder now, quieter. Something has shifted between you, no longer a favored toy, now something messier. Dangerous. The next morning you receive new silks, looser robes, gentle soaps. All signs of protection. But there are other signs too. Your maid, your loyal, quiet maid, is replaced. No explanation. Just a new girl, younger, sharper, with hands too clean. Then your food starts arriving late. Your bathwater lukewarm. Your invitations stop coming. They're isolating you, not to punish, to protect, or maybe to wait. Because here's the truth no one ever says aloud. Concubines don't own their children. If you carry a son, that child belongs to the dynasty, the emperor's lineage, the state. If you carry a daughter, she'll be raised in the palace without you. You'll bow to her like a stranger. And if anything happens to the child, you will never find out what. Oddly enough, historians still debate how many imperial children were born to concubines versus empresses. The records are foggy, intentional. Some say the empress often claimed sons, not hers, to maintain political leverage. Others suggest the Dowager orchestrated secret miscarriages to preserve the line of succession. You believe all of it, because now with every step you take, you are 2 people, and one of you is a threat. You give birth in silence. No fanfare. No drums. No red banners flapping from the balconies of the palace. Just the quiet moans of your labor muffled behind a curtain of silk and the icy hands of a midwife who doesn't dare speak your name. They'd moved you to a side pavilion weeks earlier, an herbal retreat they called it. But you know what it really is. A holding chamber. A place to keep you hidden, untouched, undisturbed, and unseen until the outcome is confirmed. And now it is. You hear the baby's cry before you feel anything else. It slices through the still air like a blade, sharp and beautiful and utterly terrifying. The midwife's hands are efficient. They lift the child from between your legs and whisk it away before you can sit up. You hear someone mutter, "Healthy, looks like the father." Then silence again. You try to ask, "Is it?" But the midwife bows and leaves the room without answering. It's hours before they tell you, "A boy." You have given birth to a prince, and now your life no longer belongs to you at all. Because sons born of concubines are the most unstable currency in the empire. They can rise to the throne or vanish in infancy. And sometimes the only difference is how many enemies their mother made before the baby took his first breath. You are no longer just a concubine. You are now a mother of an heir. And the palace treats you accordingly. You are forbidden from seeing him. The reason, health, they say. The child must be weaned by palace nurses, must sleep in a separate hall blessed by 3 astrologers, protected by 5 charms, guarded by 10 eunuchs. You're allowed 1 glimpse. From behind a screen, You see a bundle swaddled in yellow silk, barely the size of a watermelon, lying in an ivory cradle. He hiccups once. A maid gently bounces him. You don't know if he has your eyes. You aren't allowed to ask. Back in your chamber, your days change. You are watched, more spoken to less. Your schedule is altered for recovery. You are given stronger medicine even when you say you don't need it. You pretend to drink it. Then pour it into the potted plum tree by the window. One day the bark turns black. You begin to wonder if they want you ill. Still, they don't dare harm you openly now. Not while your child is alive. Not while the emperor's blood flows in his veins. But protection in the Forbidden City is a sandcastle shaped beautifully crumbling in the rain. And it does rain. A week after your glimpse, you receive word the child is sick. A fever. Possibly nothing. You are not allowed to visit. Instead, they send incense sticks to your chamber for prayer. As if smoke can comfort a womb that still aches. You spend the night staring at the window, whispering your son's name, your secret name for him. You had chosen it in labor between contractions without permission, Shulin, forest jade. No one else will ever call him that. You don't sleep. In the morning the fever breaks, but something else begins. The invitations return not for you, but for others. You are left out of banquets, left out of ceremonies, left off the roster for the autumn festival entirely. You are becoming a liability, and then the Empress pays a visit. She arrives unannounced, alone except for one silent attendant. She sits on your woven bench, adjusts the sleeve of her robe, and stares at you like someone choosing the right blade to use. I heard the boy cried when they took him from you, she says. You bow. He is strong, she continues. You did your duty. It's not a compliment. It's a closure. She sips her tea, leaves half of it, then rises. As she turns to go, she says, a mother is not always what the empire needs. That night you write a letter. To no one, for no one. You don't sign it. You just fold it into the sleeve of an old robe, the one you wore when the emperor first smiled at you. You keep it there hidden like a version of yourself that no longer exists. Oddly enough, historians still debate the role of concubine mothers in imperial succession. Some argue they were elevated, others say they were discarded after childbirth, used then stored away. A few rare cases saw these women become empresses themselves, but most were given quiet titles and silenced before their sons could speak their names. You now understand why. Because what you gave birth to wasn't just a child. It was a target. The Dowager Empress summons you without warning. Not with a letter, not with an attendant, with a fan. Yes, a fan. It's delivered to your chamber by an old eunuch you've never seen before. Its silk panels embroidered with gold chrysanthemums, the edges trimmed with pearls. No note, no words. But the message is clear to anyone in the inner court. She wants to see you. And you will go, because when the Dowager calls you, do not decline. Not even the emperor declines. You arrive at her chambers just after the 9th bell as instructed. The room smells of sandalwood and damp silk, like something left soaking in time. Her hall is darker than the rest of the palace, not dim, just less eager to impress. Even the walls seem quieter. She's seated behind a carved screen only partially visible, just her hands resting on a cushion. Fingers draped in jade rings like claws waiting to close. You wear motherhood like a veil, she says, without looking at you. You kneel quietly. I am grateful for the emperor's blessing. She clicks her tongue. Blessing. That's what they call it now. She waves the fan once. The eunuchs vanish. You are alone with her, sort of. I watched your ceremony, she says. The one with the moon poem. The emperor has a weakness for well-behaved women pretending to be clever. You do not respond. You've done well, she continues. Too well. Then she shifts slightly, And now you see her face lined like old silk but alert, awake in a way that makes you feel like prey. I was once you, she says, a mother, a concubine, a ghost. You blink, you think this is power, she continues. But it's only the prologue. The palace has a way of folding you into its walls. You may have borne a prince, but he will not remember your face. Her voice softens, almost pitying, almost. You will bow to him one day, and he will not know why. A long pause. Then just as suddenly she leans forward and says, unless you make yourself unforgettable. She tosses the fan at your feet. It lands soundlessly. You may go. You bow until your forehead aches. When you return to your chambers, the fan is still in your hands. The silk shimmers under candlelight. You hold it by the base and realize it's heavier than it looks. Weighted. With meaning or something worse. You tuck it into your drawer under folded scarves you never wear anymore. That night your sleep is dreamless. The next day you are summoned to participate in a ceremony, an offering at the ancestral altar. Normally reserved for the Empress and the most senior consorts. Your name has never been on the list before, but now it is. You say nothing. You prepare. You wear the ivory robe. You rehearse the bow. You practice the ritual phrases until your tongue stings with them. When you arrive, the others are already assembled. The Empress does not greet you, but she looks at you, not with hatred, not even suspicion, with calculation. You offer incense. You kneel. You speak the blessings. And in that moment, you feel it not power exactly, but a position, a foothold. You exist in the narrative now, not a shadow, not a whisper, a piece. When the ceremony ends, the Empress approaches. You kneel beautifully, she says. You bow. Your Majesty honors me. No, she replies with a ghost of a smile. You've done that yourself. You spend the next week floating on uncertainty. One day you're escorted by 3 eunuchs instead of 2. Another day your food arrives with no taster. Your letters, pointless unsent, begin returning with creased edges as if someone's reading them. You're not punished. You're not promoted. You're not safe. The Emperor does not call for you. He is busy affairs of state, they say. You believe it. Mostly. And then one evening, a banquet. You're placed near the front. He sees you. Nods. You nod back. Nothing else. But you feel something shift again. In the air. In the glances. The court is watching. Not just the women now. The ministers. The officials. You've become part of a different conversation. The next morning, a maid whispers that a new tutor has been assigned to the prince. Your son. You're not told his name. You're not told where the lessons will happen. But later you pass a courtyard and hear the faint sound of recitation, high-pitched, rhythmic, familiar. You stop walking. You listen, and just for a moment you hear it a laugh. Short, unsteady. Yours once, and then it's gone. Oddly enough, historians still debate the level of influence a concubine could exert over her child's upbringing. Some claim they were removed entirely after birth. Others cite rare cases where the mother shaped policy through whispers passed to her son. The truth, as always in Imperial China, lies somewhere behind a screen. You touch the fan again that night. Its weight doesn't feel as heavy now, because you understand the Dowager's lesson. You must become unforgettable. And that begins not with love, but with strategy. The lanterns are the first sign that something is wrong. They're hung too low, just enough to brush the heads of passing courtiers as if daring someone to complain. The silk is too pale, almost white, wrong for a mid-autumn gathering. Wrong enough that someone wanted it noticed. You notice. You always notice now, because every detail in the palace is a message, and this one says someone is mocking the order, or warning it. That evening you're summoned not by the Emperor, but by his steward, a quiet man with calloused hands and a voice like wet gravel. He delivers a simple message. You're to attend the chrysanthemum banquet. You blink. This isn't the usual rotation. The chrysanthemum banquet is reserved for court favorites, political favorites, officials, commanders, a few consorts for decoration maybe, but not you. You're being included for a reason, and reasons always carry weight. When you arrive, the room is already alive with the music of artificial laughter. Gold-threaded robes rustle like paper fans. Wine pours too freely. The air smells of clove and deception. You're seated near the front again. Across from you, Lady Anhua. Now she is dangerous. Her father controls a third of the southern garrisons. Her uncle writes imperial poetry. Her cousin married into the royal astrologers. And her smile, that's the sharpest weapon in the entire room. She raises her cup to you. You nod back. It's peace. For now. Halfway through the banquet, an official begins reciting a poem supposedly about flowers. But the metaphors are thick petals falling from favor vines, choking the root blossoms, too ambitious to bloom. Everyone knows who it's about. You don't react. You sip your wine slowly, let the words pass over you like rain on tile. When he finishes, the emperor claps, lazily, as if humoring a child. Then, without turning his head, he says, "Some flowers survive winter." That's it. A sentence. A shield. A warning. The official pales slightly. The room shifts. You exhale, but Lady Anhua watches you now with new interest. Not annoyance. Not jealousy. Curiosity. And that is worse. Later that week, a servant accidentally drops a box of embroidery threads in your peth. You kneel to help her gather them and notice something sewn into one of the red silks, a symbol. A tiny phoenix stitched upside down. A threat disguised as art. You say nothing. You keep the thread. You've learned not to react in the moment. Not to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing you startled. Instead, you write. Carefully. A poem delicate and vague about shadows cast by palace candles. You slip it into the scroll box meant for the emperor's evening reading, not to accuse, not to plead, just to be remembered. The next day, your food tastes different, again. You pretend not to notice. You eat every bite, and when you're not sick the next morning, you know it wasn't poison. It was a test, and you passed. That evening, a gift arrives. An inkstone, beautiful, heavy, wrapped in dark cloth. No note, no name. But the message is clear, keep writing. You begin doing just that. Not letters, those are intercepted, but stories, fables, parables about foxes outsmarting hunters, about women who turn into cranes and escape from cages, about flowers that only bloom once every 100 years, but burn so brightly the stars take notice. You write them on silk scraps, on dried leaves, on the backs of wrapping cloths, and slowly, quietly, they begin to circulate among the maids, among the younger eunuchs, among the lower consorts too frightened to speak, but desperate to feel seen. You've become a myth, the silent crane they call you. You don't stop them, because myths last longer than names. Oddly enough, historians still debate whether inner court rebellions ever truly existed, or whether they were manufactured by rival factions to justify purges. Some whisper that messages were indeed hidden in embroidery, in incense smoke, in coded poetry. Others call it superstition. But you know better, because the palace doesn't just run on law. It runs on stories, and now you're telling one of your own. You're summoned to the Hall of Silk Offerings again. This time it isn't a banquet. It isn't even ceremonial. It's something stranger, a request. You are to accompany Lady Anhua on a morning walk. Just the two of you. No attendants, no guards, no explanation. It's not an invitation. It's not optional. You arrive at dawn. The air is cool, carrying the scent of wet stone and magnolia leaves. Lady Anhua is already there, dressed plainly, too plainly, for someone who usually sparkles like a chandelier. She doesn't greet you. She just starts walking. So you follow, past the dew-glazed cobblestones, past a corridor still wrapped in shadow. She walks like a woman who owns time. You trail one step behind, never beside. Not yet. Eventually she speaks. You're cleverer than I thought. You stay silent. You've lasted longer than the others. Still silence. She stops near a koi pond and watches the fish circle like tiny imperial courtiers. Then she turns to you, eyes unreadable. I'm not here to kill you, you know. You raise an eyebrow. Just slightly. That's reassuring. She almost smiles. Almost. I'm here because something is coming, she says. And you're in the middle of it whether you like it or not. You wait. She explains carefully, like someone stepping over sleeping tigers, that the emperor is sick, that the court is dividing, that succession is no longer a matter of tradition, but of timing. You listen without blinking. You've given him a son, she says. That makes you valuable. She leans closer. But it also makes you expendable. Then she steps back and continues walking, as if she hadn't just peeled open the ceiling of your world. You follow, not because you trust her, but because you know what she's doing. She's testing you and offering you something. When you return to your chamber, a scroll waits for you. It's blank, but in the corner in red ink is the symbol of a mountain. It's not just a symbol, it's a signature. A seal used by a secret faction within the court, a group of women scholars and eunuchs loyal not to any emperor, but to the preservation of the empire itself, the Mountain Society. You've heard rumors, everyone has, that they helped certain princes disappear, that they protected one empress by staging a fire in the lotus wing, that they decide who rises and who is forgotten. And now they're reaching out. You stare at the blank scroll all night. You don't sleep. The next day, the emperor summons you, but he doesn't ask for music, or tea, or your poetry. He's in bed, pale, quiet, older than he looked a month ago. You kneel beside him, careful not to speak until spoken to. He looks at you and says, "They'll come for you when I'm gone." You don't ask who. You already know. The court, the factions, the ghosts. Protect our son, he whispers. Don't let them make him a statue. You nod, but inside you feel the stone begin to form around you. Afterward, you leave his chambers slowly. You pass 2 ministers in the hallway. They don't bow. They don't even look at you. That's how you know it's real. No, he's dying. And you're not just a concubine anymore. You're a mother of a contender. That night you write a story, not a poem, not a fable, a warning, about a boy raised among wolves who survives by pretending to be one. About a crane who weaves armor from her own feathers. About a tree that bears fruit only when blood is spilled beneath it. You burn it after writing. The ash stains your fingertips for days. Oddly enough, historians still debate who truly wielded power in the final months of a dying emperor's reign. Some say it was the ministers. Others credit the Dowager. A few point to unnamed women in the inner court concubines, mothers, mythmakers, who held the emperor's last secrets like thorns pressed against their chests. You're not interested in being a name in a scroll. You're interested in staying alive and keeping your son alive, even if that means becoming the very thing they fear. You begin sending messages stitched into silence. Not letters, those are intercepted. Not words, those are twisted. But threads. You embroider, carefully, strategically. Lotus petals that tilt toward the east. A crane with one lifted foot. A mountain with an extra peak. To most, they are decorative, but to the Mountain Society, they are signals. The first response arrives quietly. A hairpin left in your drawer. Ebony. No jewels, just a sliver of lacquered wood carved into the shape of a pine needle. It tells you one thing: we see you. You slide it into your bun the next morning. No one comments. But the head maid glances twice, then turns away. She knows something's changed. And then you wait, because now the court is stirring. The emperor has not appeared in public in 5 days. The officials bow lower when the dowager speaks. The empress smiles less, and couriers run faster through the stone corridors, their footsteps echoing like thunder. Something is about to break. You're summoned again, but this time not by name. The message is strange. You are requested at the Pavilion of Soundless Echoes, a place no one visits unless summoned. A meditation hall, an exile chamber, a place where people learn to speak without moving their lips. You dress plainly. You leave your maid behind. You walk barefoot across the sun-warmed stones, heart pounding like war drums in your chest. Inside, a single woman waits. It's Lady Anhua. Again. Only this time she's not smiling. "We don't have much time," she says. "The emperor's condition is worse than they're telling anyone." You already knew, but hearing it spoken aloud freezes the air. He may not live, the week, she adds. And when he goes, the line of succession becomes a battlefield. She opens a scroll. Not royal. Personal. Inside, a diagram of court alliances, names, branches, titles, and beside your name, mother of crown potential. Then she says it. "We want to back your son." The words hang in the air like incense smoke. You don't answer. Not yet, because this offer is not a gift. It's a trade. If we succeed, she continues, he becomes crown prince, eventually emperor. And if you fail, you ask, then you both disappear. The mountain society isn't noble. It's necessary. A network of those who understand that dynasties don't survive by birthright. They survive by calculation. You leave without answering, but she knows what your silence means. That night you watch your son from behind a screen again. He's learning to hold a brush. His tutor corrects him gently. He frowns in concentration, tongue poking slightly out, just like you used to do. You think, what does he want? He doesn't know yet, but you do. You want him to live. The next morning you act. You visit the temple. You light incense with a very specific blend, mugwort and sandalwood, a mix only used for mourning. You burn a ribbon tied with 3 knots, the signal that your answer is yes. The mountain society responds within hours. Your old maid returns, just appears outside your chambers like a ghost from a past you barely remember. She says nothing. Just bows and places a wrapped package on your table. Inside, a mirror, but not any mirror. This one has your real name etched on the back. The name you thought had been erased. They're telling you, we remember who you are. And now they expect you to remember it too. That evening, the emperor summons you again. He's weaker, voice fading. He tells you there will be 2 scrolls. One will name an heir, the other, a memory. You don't understand. But you nod. Then he whispers, "Write him a future," and he closes his eyes. You leave the chamber as quietly as you entered. The next day, rumors fly. The emperor is unconscious. The dowager has taken over morning court. The ministers are arguing about seals. The empress is praying loudly. But your world has narrowed to a single task. Prepare your son. You whisper lessons through silk screens. You send secret fables to his tutor, each one a parable for court survival. You instruct the kitchen to adjust his food, not richer, not poorer, just balanced. He begins asking better questions. He begins watching. And one morning his first sentence to you is not "Mother" or "Where is my toy?" but "Why do people lie when they smile?" You tell him because smiling is safer than truth. He nods slowly. Oddly enough, Historians still debate how young princes were prepared for succession. Official records show ceremonies, formal instruction, public readings. But private accounts tell another story of secret tutors, coded lullabies, and mothers who shaped emperors behind veils of obedience. You know which version is true, because you're living it, and the smile you wear now, that's not for beauty, it's for war. The emperor dies at dawn. They don't announce it immediately. For 6 hours, the forbidden city pretends he's still breathing. Courtiers walk as if nothing is different. Musicians play softly in the jade hall. Even the birds seem cautious, as if they've overheard too much. You find out not through decree but by silence. A eunuch kneels outside your chamber, forehead pressed to stone. The sun has set, he whispers, though it's barely past breakfast. And you understand, it's done. You're not allowed to weep. Not yet. The morning hasn't been declared. You're still wearing rose silk, not the ash-gray robes of sorrow. But inside a storm begins to rise. Not grief, no. You buried that man the moment he stopped seeing you as a woman and began seeing you only as the mother of a political inconvenience. No, what rises now is calculation, because the throne is empty, and that means blood is in the water. Hours later, a formal announcement is made. The emperor has returned to the ancestors. The court is to enter 10 days of ritual mourning. The Empress will observe from the hall of eternal light. All concubines are to remain in their quarters until summoned. But you're not summoned, you're taken. 2 guards appear before sunset and escort you silently to a pavilion you've never seen before. It smells of ink and mildew and old locked things. Inside you find her, the Dowager Empress, alone. She's dressed in mourning black, and yet her presence is brighter than ever. Like a lantern that refuses to flicker. She gestures for you to sit. You do. Then she asks, "Where is your loyalty?" You reply, "To my son." She smiles cold and thin. "Then we are the same." A pause. "I've decided to back him," she says. Just like that. Your breath catches. "He's too young to threaten the court," she explains, "but old enough to shape. The ministers will like that. He's moldable. And me, you ask. You'll disappear." The air thins. You expected this. You planned for it. And yet hearing it aloud, not vanish, she clarifies. Just fade. A widow of the past emperor. A mother. A memory. You say nothing. She leans forward. "Play your role well, and he will thrive. And if I don't, you ask carefully." She smiles wider. "Then neither of you will. You're dismissed with a nod. No guards this time." You walk back to your chamber slower, as if the floor might vanish beneath you. When you arrive, Lady Anhua is waiting inside. Uninvited. She pours tea as if she owns the table. "She made her move," she says. "We expected this." You sit. You don't even ask how she knows. She wants to control the boy, Anhua continues. Through her own tutors, her own guards, her own version of history. And you ask, "What do you want?" She sets the teacup down without drinking, to make sure the empire doesn't crumble under a corpse before the next emperor learns to tie his own sash. You breathe. She places a bundle on the table. It's a scroll. The Imperial Succession Edict, but not the real one. This one is written in your son's name, declaring him heir. "But it's forged," you whisper. "No," she says. "It's true. We're just ensuring history remembers it correctly." You're holding a weapon, a silent, ink-soaked sword. You ask, will the Dowager oppose it? She already agreed, in theory. And you understand this is your moment. Say yes, and you crown your son and risk everything. Say no, and the boy becomes a puppet, a name without a future. You take the brush. You sign your name beneath his. The next morning, 3 ministers receive copies of the scroll. By afternoon, it's confirmed that the emperor made the boy his heir with his final breath. No one questions it, not publicly, That night the lanterns are red again, the real red, bright, triumphant. You are moved to new quarters, larger, quieter watched. Your son is declared crown prince. And you are no longer called Jade Sprout. You are the noble mother of the future son of heaven. But your name is still a whisper, still fragile, still one wrong sentence away from erasure. Oddly enough, historians still debate the authenticity of the succession edict naming the crown prince. Some claim it was planted. Others say it was discovered just in time. Many agree the truth lies not in the ink, but in the hands that wielded it. You were one of those hands. And now your fingers tremble not from fear, but from what comes next. Because the throne is close, but so is every blade in the court. There's a saying in the palace, the crown prince wears the dragon's silk, but his mother wears a target. And now it's true. Your son is the heir. The entire empire bows to a boy who still struggles to sit still through morning rituals. But every bow to him casts a longer shadow over you. They call you noble mother, but behind closed doors you're whispered about as the girl who got lucky, a pretty face who slipped through the cracks, a mother who got too close to power. And that makes you dangerous. So they try to distance you. It starts subtly. A formal decree arrives. You are to enter a voluntary period of withdrawal for moral cultivation. That's code for stay quiet. You're moved into a separate wing away from the prince. You're told it's for his focus. They surround him with tutors you didn't choose, officials you don't trust, guards who watch you more than him. But you smile. You thank them for their wisdom, and you wait. You understand now that in order to protect your son, you must disappear strategically, not vanish but recede. Let them believe you are shrinking, all while extending your roots beneath the surface. Because the throne is a tree, and you are becoming the soil. Lady Anhua visits again unannounced during the new moon. She brings fruit, peaches soft and perfectly ripe. The Dowager is pleased, she says. You've behaved. You know this is a test, so you say, I'm grateful to serve the realm. She watches you. Then she says, they've assigned your son a Confucian tutor. You nod, a scholar. No, she replies, a mouthpiece. You laugh once, soft and bitter. Of course. She places a letter on your table, wax sealed. You recognize the emblem Mountain Society. You read it after she leaves. Inside instructions, names, movements, a map of who dines where, which ministers waver, who's been promised titles if they support the other boy. Because yes, there's another boy, a nephew, the Empress's cousin's child, older, sharper, raised in a military household. They're grooming him as a backup. You were foolish to think they'd stop with a scroll. So now the plan must shift. You begin writing again. This time you create lessons for your son, fables laced with truth. Each one a trap door into understanding how to survive the court. The fox who outwitted the dragon. The moonflower that only bloomed when the rest withered. The river that appeared calm but pulled like a tide. You have them smuggled into his study under the guise of bedtime tales. And he reads them. You know he does. One morning a maid returns a scroll with a tiny drawing on the back, an ink sketch of a crane with its wings stretched. He's answering you. He's learning. Meanwhile, you do your part. You attend rituals. You recite chants. You bow deeply when the Dowager enters. You nod when the Empress speaks. You send gifts to officials, carefully chosen ones, humble enough to seem harmless, symbolic enough to be remembered. A wooden comb for a minister with 3 daughters. A length of linen dyed in morning gray for a widowed court scribe. No gold, no silk, just stories. You're no longer the woman who caught the emperor's eye. You're becoming a parable in motion. And it works. Whispers soften. Invitations return. You're no longer excluded, just watched. Then the next test arrives, an imperial banquet in honor of the virtues of motherhood. a transparent excuse to parade consorts and noblewomen before the court. A pageant of power in pretty wrapping. You're placed at the far table. The Empress speaks of filial piety. The Dowager mentions ancient queens. Ministers toast each other. Then the Empress raises her cup. And of course we must honor the mother of the crown prince. A girl of grace, modesty, and restraint. There it is, a challenge. Every head turns to you. You rise slowly. You bow, and you say, "This title does not belong to me. It belongs to every woman who gave their child to the empire." A pause. Then murmurs, soft, respectful, "You've disarmed them." You sit down again, slowly. Later, Lady Anhua passes you in the garden. "You're becoming hard to kill," she whispers. You smile. "I prefer the word inconvenient." Oddly enough, historians still debate the influence of crown prince mothers during transitional reigns. Some were hidden away, never to be seen again. Others moved armies with handwritten notes. Many became symbols of grief, of loyalty, of the kind of power no one dares name aloud. You're not sure which one you're becoming, but you know this: they can call you what they like, just as long as they keep your son alive. He calls you mother again out loud in public. It's a simple thing. A word. But in the palace, a word is never just a word. It's a flare in the dark, a ripple in still water. It happens during the mid-spring offering, surrounded by ministers and tutors and ritualists droning on about celestial harmony. You approach to bow as instructed. Your presence technically is symbolic. They don't expect the boy to acknowledge you. You are not in the chain of command. You are barely in the seating chart. But then in front of all of them, the crown prince, your son, turns and says, "Mother." Everyone freezes. The high priest coughs. A scribe drops his brush. The Empress's knuckles go white on her prayer beads. And you bow deeper. You say nothing, but your heart gallops. That one word rewrites the room. It's not just affection. It's allegiance. It's memory. The boy remembers who you are, not the story they're trying to teach him, not the lines his tutors rehearse in his ear, but you. The woman behind the screen, the voice in the parables, the ghost with soft hands who once sang lullabies too quietly for the guards to hear. After the ceremony, you're escorted out quickly. Too quickly. A silent message. Don't let it happen again. But the damage is done. Or the power planted, and now the palace begins to whisper again. You catch it in the corners, maids exchanging glances, eunuchs bowing slightly deeper, courtiers hesitating before dismissing you. You're no longer the forgotten concubine. You're the boy's memory, the one thing they can't scrub from his mind, and they're afraid of that, so they try to distance you again, this time through titles. A decree arrives. You are to be honored with the designation Lady Mother of Benevolent Obedience, a title that means everything and nothing. It elevates you, but it also limits you. It grants you ceremony but not proximity. It's the court's way of saying, be visible but not present. You accept the title with a gracious bow, then immediately request an audience with the Dowager. She grants it. You meet her in a shaded garden where the chrysanthemums are just beginning to open. She's seated in a wicker chair, veiled, sipping tea, like someone who's forgotten she controls half the empire. You should be pleased, she says without looking at you. I am, you reply. But I do wonder what my obedience has earned. She raises an eyebrow. You continue. A title is a story. But stories need readers. And I wonder, shouldn't the crown prince know the tale of the mother who bore him? A long pause. Then she laughs. Careful, girl, she says. Flattery smells different when it's sharpened. You bow. Of course, your grace. She lets you leave without punishment, but also without permission. It's a stalemate, so you shift tactics. If the court won't give you access, you'll use the one thing you still control, your son's imagination. You begin sending objects never directly, always through intermediaries, always passed through layers of plausible deniability. A carved bird made of sandalwood, a folded note tucked into a poetry scroll, even roots must bend toward the sun. A scarf stitched with stars that align to his birth date. He receives them. He must. Because 3 weeks later he makes a public remark during a scroll reading. I have always believed that roots even hidden shape the tallest trees. The Dowager glances at you just once and then looks away. Later, Lady Anhua meets you in the Hall of Returning Echoes. She says the ministers are nervous. They say the prince is becoming too attached. You respond, "Is that not the foundation of filial piety?" She smiles. "You're weaponizing virtue. You don't deny it." She leans in. "There's talk of sending the prince to a mountain temple for training, for humility." Your stomach turns to stone. "That would be exile," you whisper. "Not officially," she says. "But yes." You breathe. Then you say, "Then we don't let that happen." That night you write another parable. This time, it's about a lion cub sent into the forest to learn humility, only to return with teeth too sharp to control. A warning, a prophecy, a promise. You make sure it ends up in the Emperor's private reading pile. Oddly enough, historians still debate whether crown princes were truly sent away for training, or whether these were elegant removals dressed in silk and incense. In some dynasties, a temple retreat was an honor. In others, it was the first step toward erasure. You know which this would be, so you gather your strength. You call in old favors. You gift scrolls to minor officials whose daughters were once scorned. You remind the right people that the crown prince still calls you mother. And when the Dowager finally issues her decree, it's changed. The prince will not leave the palace. He will study in the northern wing under the statue of the first emperor, where all who pass must bow. And you remain just out of reach. But now they call you by your title with a little more weight. Lady Mother of Benevolent Obedience. It's a story, and you're still the one writing it. You begin aging out of beauty, not rapidly, not tragically, just quietly. A little more shadow under the eyes, a few strands of silver glinting against the black. Your reflection softens around the edges like a favorite painting touched too often. But no one says anything. In the inner court, time isn't discussed unless it's ceremonial. Wrinkles are ignored. Gray hairs are pulled. Faces are powdered not to shine but to forget. Yet you remember, because while beauty once earned you entry, it's no longer your currency. That stage is over. Now your value lies in something more durable: presence. Quiet influence. Familiarity with fear. The ability to remain when others vanish. And vanish they do. Another concubine disappears. One who once stood beside you at your first lantern festival. No ceremony. No mourning. Just an empty chamber and a quiet reshuffling of the seating chart. A few days later, a tutor is reassigned. Another retires. And one of the junior ministers, whose allegiance once leaned suspiciously toward Lady Anhua, is found drowned in a lily pond. They say it was an accident. You no longer believe in accidents. You receive a letter. Short, crisp. The boy is watching. So are we. No name. No seal. But you recognize the brushstroke, a mountain society hand. The letters have become less poetic lately, more direct, more urgent. Your son, now nearly grown, begins speaking at court. His voice still cracks sometimes. His gestures are too large, his opinions too rehearsed. But he listens. He pauses before speaking. He looks people in the eye, something the emperor himself rarely did in his last years. And most importantly, he remembers your lessons. You hear them in his phrases, the metaphors, the restraint. He says, a strong tree bends before the storm. He says, the lowest stone in the riverbed sees the whole mountain. These are your words, dressed as wisdom worn like armor. And with every phrase, the ministers take notice. They start bowing lower, but not everyone is pleased. The Empress's family, though technically removed from succession talks, begins pressing for influence again. A cousin appears at court. Then another. A brother is appointed to an advisory role. His fingers twitch constantly, never a good sign. One evening you find a dead sparrow in your courtyard, laid carefully, not torn, no wound, just placed. You bury it with your own hands. That same week your son falls ill, not gravely, just enough to cancel his audiences, enough to keep him in bed shivering through warm nights. The physicians find no source, but you know, it's a warning. So you respond. You send your son a gift, a small carved box, containing a single almond blossom, dried, preserved, and tucked in paper scented with camphor. Hidden inside is a poem. Spring comes late, but still it comes. Be still, be stone, then bloom. He understands, because 3 days later he rises again, publicly, sharply, declaring a renewed devotion to Confucian principle, announcing a plan to host open dialogues with senior ministers, inviting the Empress herself to join him for a ceremonial tea. Everyone sees it. They call it wisdom. But you know what it really is, a counter-move. And then the tide begins to shift. One of the ministers who once called you an accident of history now petitions for you to be granted honored matron status, an upgrade that would place you just one step beneath the Empress Dowager herself. You don't accept, not immediately. Instead, you wait, and while you wait, you walk. You begin appearing again, slowly, gracefully, in gardens, in libraries, in the quiet spaces of power where decisions are not shouted but implied. Women begin coming to you, widows, concubines, even maids. They ask advice not about power, about survival, and you give it. A pinch of salt under the tongue during long audiences, how to nod without agreeing, where to cry and where never to. You become a presence, not a shadow, not yet a ghost, but a memory that refuses to fade. Oddly enough, historians still debate the political significance of the title honored matron. In theory, it was ceremonial. In practice, it could be a fulcrum tipping balance in favor of maternal influence or reducing a woman to ornamentation, depending on who held the pen. You haven't picked up the pen yet, but you've sharpened it, and now everyone waits to see if you'll write your next name with it. Because when you speak, they listen, but when you're silent, they worry. The scroll arrives at midnight, unmarked, unsealed, delivered by a eunuch, with no name and no voice. Just trembling hands and eyes that won't meet yours. He leaves as soon as he sets it down, vanishing into the lantern-lit haze like a shadow with a job well done. You wait before opening it, not out of fear, but because in the palace timing is everything. Even reading must be a performance. You make tea. You light incense. You wash your hands in silence. Then only then you unroll it, inside 4 words. He will be crowned. That's it. No date, no signature, no flourish. But it doesn't need one. You know what it means. Your son, the boy who once asked why people smile when they lie, who once sent you crane drawings in secret, is to become emperor. The timing is strategic. The current regency has held for too long. The dowager is weakening. The empress has lost favor. The ministers are fractured. And the people, oh the people, have begun to whisper for change. And so they will crown him. Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. You sit for a long time in the candlelight, letting the weight of those words press into your chest like a hand. He will be crowned. And then what? Will he be safe? Will you? The next morning you visit the ancestral hall. You walk slowly between the rows of lacquered name tablets, past emperors, empresses, consorts, long buried, some honored, some disgraced, all compressed into neat lines of ink and incense. You wonder what name history will give you. Jade Sprout, the low-born favorite. Mother of the Phoenix Emperor, or worse, no name at all. Just a line in someone else's story. You bow before the tablets anyway. You offer wine, burn a stick of sandalwood, and say nothing, because now your voice must be saved. The court begins preparing quietly. Behind closed doors, fabrics are chosen, dates considered, omens interpreted. A comet passed last week. Convenient. A white crane was seen nesting near the eastern gate. Even better. Everything is aligning, except one thing. You still have no official place in the new court. No one has said whether you'll be named Empress, Mother, Grand Matron, or something less defined, something that means, thank you, no vanish. Lady Anhua visits once more. Her hair is streaked with silver now, though her eyes are sharp as ever. This is the final game, she says. They will name him Emperor. But the question is, who will raise his sword hand? You don't ask what she means. You already know. Control. They want control. Even now, especially now. If you speak too soon, she says you'll be seen as grasping. If you say nothing, you risk becoming irrelevant. You pour tea, then ask, so what's your advice? She studies you, then answers with a rare kind of honesty. Tell the people a story, not the court, not the ministers, not even the boy, the people, because power doesn't just live in scrolls and titles. It lives in stories passed from mouth to mouth, in songs sung by wet nurses, in gossip traded between servants, in legends that begin, she was the mother of the emperor, and she once. You understand now. To survive this final transition, you don't need approval. You need belief. So you begin, quietly. You visit the kitchens, the gardens, the weaving chambers. Not like a ruler, but like someone returning to her roots. You tell stories about a girl who climbed from nothing and gave birth to a dynasty. About a woman who never raised her voice but still made the palace lean when she walked. You let others finish the tales for you. Let the embellishments grow like ivy over truth. They say she stitched her son's first robe herself. She predicted the emperor's dream before he dreamed it. She once silenced a room just by standing in the doorway. None of it is provable. All of it is powerful. Soon guards nod when you pass. Servants bow just a little deeper. Even the Dowager begins sending you gifts again, pearls, teas, an embroidered poem that reads, "Still water reflects the truest image." A message or a warning, maybe both. Finally, the date is set. Your son will be crowned on the 3rd day of the 3rd month. Auspicious, celestial, imperial. The night before, he asks to see you, privately. You're led to his chambers, larger now, filled with scrolls and armor he's too young to wear. He looks older, sharper, but when he sees you, his shoulders drop just a little. He's still your son beneath all the silk. He kneels. You try to stop him, but he insists. "Tomorrow I will wear the dragon robe," he says. "But tonight I needed to remember who I was before all this." You reach out, touch his hair. "You were always this," you say. "They're just catching up." Then before he rises, he presses something into your hand. A jade token, imperial green, etched with one word, Mother. Not a title, not an order, just the truth. Oddly enough, historians still debate the moment the emperor was crowned. Some say it was orchestrated by ministers. Others credit the Dowager's influence. A few whisper of a woman behind the veil, whose hands never signed a decree, but shaped the man who would. You never wrote your own history, but somehow it's being written anyway. And tomorrow, when the bells ring and the people cheer and your son mounts the dragon throne, you will still be here, unmoving, unshaken, unforgettable. The bells begin before sunrise. You hear them through layers of stone silk and memory low echoing endless, carried by morning mist that curls against the palace eaves like ghosts coming home. 12 strikes, one for each heaven, one for each ancestor, one for every step your son must now climb. You rise before the maid's knock, before the ceremony robe is laid across your bed, before the water for your face is warmed, because you've been waiting for this day since the moment he cried into silence and was taken from your arms. And now the palace waits too, every tile polished, every jade lion rubbed smooth. Even the koi in the ponds seem to swim in tighter circles, as if rehearsing for the gaze of heaven. You are dressed in gold, not the loud conquering gold of generals, but the soft old gold of wisdom and dusk. Threads sewn by hand, symbols so ancient even the tailors no longer remember what they mean. A crane, a pine, a mountain. You are not escorted by guards. You walk alone, because no one needs to announce who you are anymore. You step into the hall of supreme harmony, and the air thickens. The courtiers rise as one. The Empress does not speak. The Dowager nods once. The ministers shift like reeds in wind. But all eyes turn when your son enters. He wears the dragon robe. He walks slowly, but not nervously. His hands are steady. His face is unreadable until he sees you. Then just briefly his eyes flicker, and you see it the boy who once drew cranes in ink, who once asked why lies wear smiles. And then he is the emperor. The ceremony begins. He bows to the heavens, to the ancestors, to the court. And last he bows to you, not a shallow ceremonial dip, a deep bow. The kind that makes scholars raise their eyebrows. The kind that will be written into scrolls. The kind that means I remember. The hall is silent, and in that silence you feel the shape of your life rise around you, not as a line but as a circle, from girl to mother to myth, from forgotten to found. And as your son accepts the jade seal, you know, you have won the longest war without ever raising your voice. After the ceremony, you are not rushed, not dismissed. You are escorted with the reverence reserved for constellations. Back in your chamber, you remove the gold robe. Your maid weeps softly behind the screen. You sit by the window watching the plum tree shift in the wind. A crane lands on its branch. It stays for a moment, then lifts off without a sound. You do not cry. You breathe. Oddly enough, historians still debate what became of the emperor's mother after his ascension. Some records list her as Empress Dowager, others omit her entirely. But among the people, among the nurses, the scribes, the gardeners, she is remembered as the mother who stayed, the woman who did not vanish, the crane who flew silently but cast a shadow over history. And though your name may fade from official lips, the empire will walk roads you helped pave. Roads your son will rule with the stories you stitched beneath his skin. Because what you built was not just survival, it was memory. And memory in the right hands is an empire. Word count 198. Summary, 300 words. So now you finally rest. Not because you're tired, though you are. Not because your work is done, though. In many ways it is. But because your story, the one that began with a trembling girl standing barefoot in the palace courtyard, has reached its closing chapter. You entered the forbidden city, nameless, voiceless, dressed in someone else's idea of beauty. You learned to speak without speaking, to rise without moving, to fight without drawing blood. You watched your child be taken only to grow stronger than any sword they could have forged. And when they tried to erase you, you wrote yourself into legend. They called you concubine, then mother, then nothing. But you knew who you were all along, and now so does he. The boy who became emperor. The emperor who still remembers the bedtime parables, the silent gifts, the soft strength of the woman who never raised her voice but raised a ruler. not through war, but through presence. You were the story that shaped the throne, the echo that taught the walls to listen, the quiet that turned into legacy. So sleep now knowing you did not win by accident. You won by design, and though they may not carve your name into stone, they will feel you in every law he passes, every ritual he leads, every truth he dares to tell. End of script. Good night.